Close your eyes. Picture a shopping mall. You recognize this store before you even see it. First, the base, heavy like a nightclub at 2 in the afternoon. And then, the smell. Not a scent, a statement. A wall of cologne so thick you could smell it 3 stores away. A smell that tells you one thing: you're not for everyone here. You walk in. It's dark. Not cinematic, like someone forgot to pay the electric bill and turned it into an aesthetic. Half-naked models look down at you, and the shirtless guy at the entrance looks like he was placed there on purpose, to make you feel not quite good enough. This was Abercrombie Fitch, the most powerful teen brand in America. And then, over a single decade, it became a punchline. The stock crashed, stores closed. The obituary was already written. And here's the first thing that's hard to believe. In 2023, the stock of this dead mall store rose faster than Nvidia. The same Nvidia the entire planet was talking about. And it didn't start with a new ad campaign. It started with one very awkward question nobody had thought to ask. To understand how Abercrombie came back to life, first you have to understand how it died. And to understand that, you have to understand one man. His name was Mike Jeffries. He ran Abercrombie for more than 2 decades. And if you imagine a person who looks at a clothing store and thinks, what if I made it hostile to most people? You've found him. He once gave an interview, on the record, and he said, quoting directly, "We go after the cool kids. A lot of people don't belong, and they can't belong. Are we exclusionary? Absolutely." He wasn't apologizing. He was explaining the strategy. And that strategy was built into every square foot. The darkness hid the price tags. The cologne was pumped through the vents to wire the brand straight into your memory. And the shirtless guys at the door weren't hired to sell clothes. They were hired to tell you, before you even walked in, whether you belonged. And for a while it worked. It worked frighteningly well. Stores in nearly 20 countries, more than $4 billion a year. Teenagers begged their parents for just one item, not because the clothes were special, but because the moose on your chest was social currency. It said something about who you were, or who you wanted to look like. And then the internet showed up. And the internet had opinions. An internal practice surfaced. The company deliberately didn't carry larger sizes, so that certain people simply couldn't buy anything there. Lawsuits from employees barred from wearing a hijab. Lawsuits from Black and Asian workers kept in back rooms, away from customers' eyes. And people started burning their Abercrombie shirts. Not as a fashion statement, as a verdict. Think about that for a second. The brand built an entire empire on one feeling: you're not good enough. And an entire generation remembered that feeling. Remembered the awkward look at the door. Remembered the size that didn't exist for them. By 2014, the board pushed Jeffries out. They did the math. The man who built the brand was now destroying it faster than he earned. Revenue collapsed. Hundreds of stores closed. Analysts pulled out the phrase strategic alternatives, Wall Street language that means think about selling the furniture before the lights go out. Everyone expected the brand to be carved up and sold. Instead, a woman walked in and asked a question that made the old team uncomfortable. In 2017, Fran Horowitz took the CEO chair. She didn't call a press conference about a new Abercrombie. She didn't promise a revolution. She started with a question so simple, it almost sounded awkward. who actually used to buy our clothes? And the answer was painful. Not cool teenagers, just teenagers. Specifically, the teenagers of 2003, who were now 35, with a job, an apartment, a credit card with a real limit. Here's what almost every brand forgets. The people who loved you don't disappear. They just grow up. And if you spend all your energy chasing the next generation, you lose the one that was already yours. Years later, Jaguar would make the exact same mistake. It would erase its own history, retire its legendary cat, and switch off the lights in its old showrooms, all for a new world. And it would find the new world wasn't waiting, and the old one hadn't forgiven. Because loyalty isn't a habit, it's a contract. And if you break it unilaterally, you're left alone with an empty room. Abercrombie's first customers didn't leave the brand. The brand left them. At 35, they didn't want a shirt with a logo across the chest. They wanted decent fabric, a size that exists.
And to walk into a store without feeling like they had to pass a casting just to be allowed inside. So Horowitz made a bet that, to the old team, looked like a betrayal of everything Jeffries built. She killed the moose. Not shrank it, killed it. The giant logo became an almost invisible stamp. She shut off the cologne in the vents. She turned on the lights. She expanded the size range for real people, not the ideal bodies in Jeffries' head. The difference wasn't in the decisions themselves. It was in who she was doing it for. She wasn't only building a new audience. She was following the old one through time, betting that those people, now with money and reasons to spend it, would come back if you treated them like adults. Turning on the lights sounds boring. In reality, it was surgery on the customer's own sense of dignity. And at first, nobody believed it would work. They came back, slowly at first, then all at once. And here was the math Jeffries never understood. An adult customer doesn't come for one shirt. They buy 7. Jeans for the office, something for a wedding, a gift. Adults spend more, return less, and stay loyal longer. Loyalty turns into baskets. Baskets turn into revenue. And the same person who, as a teenager, hated walking past this store because of the suffocating smell, was now coming back at 35. Not because anyone made him, but because, finally, he felt let in. As a teenager, I hated walking past Abercrombie. They drenched the store in so much cologne it was disgusting. I never thought I'd come back in my 30s. That isn't our script. A real person wrote it. And there are thousands like them. But here's the part the headlines missed. Abercrombie didn't just win its old fans back. The same early 2000s styles those millennials grew up on came back into fashion, and a brand new generation, Gen Z, made it cool all over again. The lapsed customer with money and the teenager discovering it for the first time at the same moment. And then came 2023. Abercrombie Fitch stock rose 285%. The best year the company had since it went public in 1996. And now, we come back to where we started. In the same year, Nvidia was the most talked about stock on the planet. A quiet mall clothing store from Ohio beat it. Not by a rounding error, for real. The
The same analysts who wrote about strategic difficulties were now writing about a remarkable transformation. Same people, different vocabulary. And it seems like the story is over. The brand died, came back, beat Nvidia, happy ending. And then, just when everyone thought the period was placed, the ghost of Mike Jeffries returned. And what happened to the stock in that moment explains the whole story backwards. In October 2024, Mike Jeffries was arrested. 16 federal counts, 1 of sex trafficking, 15 of interstate prostitution. He's been charged, not convicted, but prosecutors described a man far darker than anyone at the company admitted out loud. It was front-page news, and the stock barely moved. And here's why that matters. The market understood what the press was still processing. Abercrombie had already cut out the rot. What existed in 2023 shared only a name with Jeffries' empire. The culture, the values, the people, different. The operation was done years earlier. The patient had already recovered. So here's the autopsy. Abercrombie didn't just chase a brand new crowd.
It went back for the customers it already had and grew up alongside them while a new generation rediscovered it.
Sounds simple. It isn't. And before you decide this is a story about one clothing store, stop for a second. Because it applies to any business, any brand, maybe yours. Because Horowitz admitted what brands hate to admit. Your audience is aging. And aging with them means changing what you sell and what you are. Most do the opposite. Look at Gap. Same era, same malls, same original audience. Gap is still chasing a youth it doesn't understand, still changing logos and sits roughly where it did 10 years ago. Abercrombie asked a different question. Not, how do we stay young, but who are we for now that our customers have grown up? And the second lesson, quieter. An identity built on exclusion has a shelf life. You're not good enough only works while people desperately want to belong. Adults with money don't want to feel rejected. They want to feel respected. They just needed permission to come back.
Every empire leaves a body.
This time, the body got up. Abercrombie was buried and clawed its way back by returning to the people who once loved it. The brand we'll cover next chose a different path. A car so beautiful, even Ferrari called it the most beautiful ever made. Healthy, iconic, a century of legend. And it chose to lie down on the table itself. In Europe, in a single month, it sold 49 cars. Not 49,000, 49. Jaguar didn't die by someone's hand. It killed itself. On purpose. We do the autopsy. Subscribe. That file opens next. And in the comments, one word. Was Jaguar brave, or did it betray everyone who loved it?